Okay, just letting a few people in, then I'll get going.
I can see Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
Can people come off mute, Matt?
Yes, sorry, I'm just setting up my speakers.
Long time, Jeremy. You well?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Very well. Nice to see you. I love your eclectic office. It always makes you smile.
That's all right. Sorry, I'm still messing around with my headphones. So we don't use them much, so it never remembers my settings.
No.
Right, okay, I'll get going then. So hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today for a webinar on VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery on AWS. So I'm joined by Matt Atkinson, Migrations and VMware Cloud on AWS Specialist, and Matt Keeble, who is Head of AWS Practice here at Bytes. So before I pass you over to the first Matt of the day, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping details with you. You may have heard that I've already started recording the webinar, so keep an eye out on your inbox in the next day or so, and you'll be able to rewatch on demand. You'll be muted throughout the webinar, but if you do have any questions, please submit them through the chat box. These will be answered at the end in the Q&A session. And there is a short feedback form at the end of the webinar, so please fill this out if you can. We always appreciate your feedback. So now I'll pass you over to Matt Keeble.
Thanks very much, Georgia. And hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out to speak to us today or listen about VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery on AWS. The good news is they decided to create an acronym because that is a mouthful. So from now on, we will likely be talking about it as VCDR. So today we've already had our welcome, a quick intro from me, a small handover to Mike Rogers, who's our VMware partnership lead and VMware expert. And then that'll be over to Matt Atkinson over at Amazon to talk about VCDR, why it's such a great solution. You guys should be looking at it, and we'll be talking about some next steps, specifically around some POC funding and assessment funding to allow you to better understand what a VCDR solution would look like on your environment. And as Georgia says, please do write any questions at the end, during the session, and we'll look to get them answered at the end. We should have some time left over today. A little bit about who we are as a partner. So Bytes, as maybe a lot of you know, have been historically in the Microsoft world and diversified over the last 15, 20 years, as most other resellers have, and sell a mixture of everything. So all the security solutions you can think of, Adobe's and everything else in between. About 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to create an AWS partnership, as we can see Amazon being such a massive part of a lot of our customers' spend, and cloud being a more and more important part of the IT world. So we created a partnership with Amazon and are now what's called an advanced consulting partner. What that means is that we've got an entire technical team that have jumped through a lot of hoops and audits from Amazon to ensure that we can deliver on what we say we can. Our team of technical people runs to about 40 people now, from business analysts, project managers, to pro-level solution architects. And what it basically means is that we are an end-to-end solution. So anything that you guys want to look at on Amazon, whether that's VCDR, VMC, cloud native migrations, AI, ML, we're able to come in and support you. We have got a lot of competencies. We're Microsoft Workloads Partner of the Year for the last 2 years. We're a managed service provider. We can offer billing services. So if you're existing AWS and you'd like some help in optimizing, please do reach out following this webinar. A really important part, and probably the one I'm focusing on most in this slide, is our access to funding. And we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but it's really, really important because last year, so last calendar year, January to December, we managed to attain $2 million plus, so about $2.1 million we finished at of funding for our customers. And that's for anything. That's for anything that generates revenue on AWS. But if we're speaking specifically around VCDR today, we've got some POC funding available and some assessment funding that will allow you, as I mentioned, to be able to better understand what this would look like in Amazon, in VCDR, to ensure that your workloads are protected. That's that slide there. Moving on briefly to a little bit more detail about what we do. This is a bit of a journey. but I think it's worth mentioning today that, we're looking at the assess piece today. So that top right corner, and that is all around looking at the feasibility of what your infrastructure would look like in a VCDR environment. But we go all the way around there and offer that end-to-end solution, as I mentioned. So discovery is building out the set of tools, and mobilize is creating the landing zones, migrating and modernizing and optimizing and managing. So without further ado, I will hand over to Mike, who will talk a little bit about our VMware partnership, who will then be followed by Matt at Amazon.
Thanks, Matt, and hi, everyone. So I'm Mike Rogers, and I work at Bytes as a VMware specialist. And I wanted to take this opportunity to briefly outline why Bytes for VMware and AWS. Well, at Bytes, we have a leading agnostic modern workplace, data management, and hybrid infrastructure practices built over 15 years experience. Our top tier experts help all sizes of customers meet all types of challenges. And part of the reason we've been so successful is due to our ability to provide guidance end to end from design all the way through to implementation. We also look to maximize your current investments by offering a free of charge, independent advisory service covering infrastructure, workloads and applications, management, cloud, and we'll provide an agnostic report based on our recommendations and guidance. AWS is a key part of our hybrid infrastructure practice, working alongside Matt and their wider teams to assist you with VCDR, migrations, and the plethora of other services. So last note from me, please feel free to reach out to your Bytes account manager or myself if you have any questions, queries, or if you simply want to know a little bit more. Thanks, everyone, and I'll hand over to Matt to get going with VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
I can. It's just, I think it's going into presenter mode.
Perfect. Are we all good?
It is loading. It's got the wheel.
Oh gosh.
Mike, what are you seeing?
Yeah, same thing. I think it's just going into the
I'll tell you what I'll do. Did something silly then. I shared the whole screen. Let me just share the.
That's perfect.
Lovely. Yeah, I shared my whole screen and it caused a bit of a problem. So, hey, thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, the whole of the Bytes team for inviting me here today to talk about VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery. It's a DR as a service based solution built on VMware and AWS technologies. My name's Matt Atkinson. I'm an enterprise specialist within the VMware team at AWS, here to support all of our customers and partners who want to move to VMware Cloud on AWS and VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery Service. Okay. So this is my agenda for the morning. I think we'll be about 10-15 minutes talking through this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the scene, and then I'm going to introduce VCDR. I'm going to call it VCDR from now on. And then I can go into a little bit more detail on kind of flows on and such like on how it actually works. And then we'll talk next steps. So when you hear disaster recovery, what people tend to think of is disaster, natural disaster, some kind of, fatal challenge. When we actually then look into what disaster events look like within our IT industry, actually, nearly 84% of them are not natural disaster or those kind of events. Ransomware is by far the biggest challenge we have in disaster. Power outages second, and then actually human error is third. So what we tend to see is that we're protecting for a very what we think of as a disaster as a very small proportion of the challenges we have within IT. And when we look at what the analysts are saying, Gartner tell us that 76% of respondents have reported an incident in the last 2 years, and so over 50% have reported more than one incident over the last 2 years. Forrester have shown that 52% of organizations have experienced data breach, and actually S&P have identified that we actually only test 17% of us only test our DR implementations more than twice a year. So we recognize that there's a challenge, and we recognize that there's a problem, but actually we don't necessarily put the process in place to protect ourselves. And when we look at this, Gartner tell us ransomware attacks, for example, are increasing by over 300% since 2018. The cost of these events up to 2021 was about $20 billion. The average cost per incident was $100,000. And spending in IT is reducing. So all of these are challenges to you and to your budgets, but these can be mitigated, and they can be mitigated by creating a DR strategy and testing it regularly. They can be prevented by training your employees and following the 3-2-1 rule. And the 3-2-1 rule is have 3 copies across 2 sites and make sure one of those is on premises. And they can be lowered by minimizing human error. And when we look to address the pressure on your budgets, these can be achieved by leveraging cloud economics, using utility-based pricing to support your business. So we know there's a problem. We can address it. How do we address it? Oops, let's go on 1 too far. So in summary, when we look at DR solutions that are available in the market, many are complex, many have highly manual processes which are complicated to install and deliver. They are high cost and they're inefficient in terms of storage, use excessive bandwidth, and they take a lot of upskilling to deliver. And very often they're unreliable. You don't have the necessary process in place for testing, for doing the run books. They can be error prone, and generally not particularly reliable. So we have a challenge here. Also, when we look at the pricing of traditional DR solutions versus DR as a service, the DR as a service can be between 30 and 50% more cost effective than a traditional service. That's a Gartner quote there. So what is VCDR? So I thought I'd just take the luxury of explaining the relationship between VMware and AWS. So back in 2016, VMware and AWS created a strategic partnership together, Pat Gelsinger and Andy Jassy on stage, and we talked about the world of hybridity and enabling customers to benefit from their on-premises investments and then growing into AWS. And we built this platform in 2016, a jointly engineered solution, which is a fully managed service. And this is the core. So the VMware Cloud on AWS platform as is today, which has over 700 customers on it and over 6,000 nodes of work of compute in the platform. So we've got lots of operational experience. And what this platform does is it provides an SDDC, so a software-defined data center in the cloud, which enables you to move workloads up and down should you wish to, or indeed just present them into AWS as you see fit. You can then have access to the 200 plus native services that are available within AWS to help build your modernization play towards native, should that be the way you want to move, or indeed you can maintain your VMware estate and grow that through the VMware technology stack. It can be paid for on demand, but equally it can be paid for on subscription to drive efficiency. And the key thing, it enables all of these technologies we're talking about today, enable you to use the consistent and familiar tooling that you have on premises, in the cloud. And that's key in terms of simplicity and reduction of risk. And then finally, should you wish to develop new apps and new container service and solutions by the VMware technology stack, then you can do so. So let's quickly talk about what VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery is. If you look at this slide, it shows 3 areas. On the left-hand side, it shows your production environment. On the right-hand side, it shows effectively the brains of the VCDR, the VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery Service. And on the right-hand side, it shows an environment of, within VMC, effectively the recovery area when a disaster is invoked. And what we see here is, if we look at the arrows, they're quite key. So what happens is your production environment replicates and takes snapshots, and those are stored within the SaaS orchestrator, and that's effectively an AWS platform managed by VMware. Should there be a disaster, your environment is live mounted into the VMC SDDC on the right-hand side, and that effectively brings up your environment until you need to, until you're able to return back to your on-premises environment. And then when you do return back, actually the deltas are brought back to your production environment, enabling you to seamlessly operate. Oh, the wrong way. What it means on demand, so you have that live mount, it's instant. There is the option to have a pilot light service where you have your VMC nodes running in the background, and those can then be used for for other services that you may have in your business, prod, test, dev environments. So they might be, the VMC nodes may be sitting there, but you can use those for other services, so they're not a burden to the business and a cost to the business. The unique here is that there's no VM format conversion. We're moving VMs up into the cloud, and then when necessary, we bring them back down, and you've got a rapid recovery for ransomware. It's easy to use. We talked about the tooling. It's the same tooling on premises and in the cloud. You use the VMC Cloud Console, and it's a SaaS-based management service. So it's exactly what it says on the tin. The platform, the central platform, has it's a fully managed service, so it's maintained and operated. So there's no worry about level of software patching, etc., etc. That's all done for you. And at the same time, we provide you with a range of built-in audit reports to make sure that the platform is running smoothly. And then finally, on a cloud economics perspective, you pay for the capacity when it's needed. So it's an on-demand service. I'll talk briefly about pricing in a moment. It's efficient. The storage is an efficient way of holding your data, and we have a simplified pricing model to deliver the platform. I think I've talked through this. We have Instant Power.on. You can pick the snapshot from whichever point in time you wish to pick from, and then you have the ability to scale up hundreds and hundreds of VMs at once. So pricing, right? This is quite a small slide, but in real summary, the pricing is based on the number of virtual machines that you want to protect and the associated storage of those VMs. We run through a pricing calculator, and that drops out a price per year. You take a subscription, either a 1-year or a 3-year subscription, to protect your environment. And then you have the added optional. As I said, you can have a cold or a warm service. The cold is when you're just using on-demand nodes, so you invoke disaster, or disaster happens and you invoke the recovery. Your VMC nodes are spun up, the STD is created, takes about 90 minutes, and then you rebuild your environment. In a warmer environment, obviously you'd have the 2 nodes running, and then you can then immediately recover into those environments and then flex beyond to 2, 3, 4, 5, however many nodes you need to do. So that is the commercial model associated with the platform. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail. So this is a little walkthrough of how the platform works. So again, production site on the left, cloud-based service in the middle, and the recovery target on the right-hand side. So we have the option for a pilot light, as I said, so minimum 2-node deployment, which enables you to recover fast time. Disaster occurs. We have the live mount, so that pushes the environment from the cloud service up into the SDDC. No need to rehydrate before the power on. And then, as we said, there's no format changes. There's native vSphere VM format. So there's no tricky conversion. This is all automated for you. And then you can identify which recovery point you want to restore to using the live mount. So there's immutable snapshots available. From an ease of use perspective, okay, it's the same vSphere VMware environment that you know and love, and it enables you to run with the same skills, same team, etc., to deliver the platform. It's a SaaS-based platform. We've talked about this, so there's no software lifecycle management. It's a managed service. So literally, it's a turnkey solution, and we provide those health checks, audits, and reports, so you know what the platform looks like. You know what's on it within the platform. And finally, so it's an efficient storage platform. We know that it's effectively running in the AWS cloud on the orchestrator. The pricing is simple to understand. 1 year, 3 year subscription, so you can pick and choose whichever way you wish to purchase. Again, when the disaster occurs in that on-demand environment, you then spin up the VMC nodes, run the environment on demand, and then fail back as and when you need to. So that's a pretty whistle-stop tour of VCDR. Our next steps, and I'm going to ask Matt Keeble to come back in here, but at a high level, we want you to engage with your Bytes and your AWS account teams. We have what's called an optimization license assessment, which enables us and Bytes to assess your environment, do that discovery to understand the hardware and the software and your Windows licensing, to effectively provide a full, understanding of your environment, so we can then provide the best guidance in terms of a way forward. And the final point is, once you've done that OLA assessment and you know roughly where you want to be, then if you would like to try VCDR, then we are happy to offer a free pilot to test the service, create your runbooks, create your playbook, so that you can actually do that whole DR strategy all the way through to ensure that it does exactly what you require it to do. I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to ask Matt Keeble to come back in. I think I have another slide to explain what optimization license assessment is, but I think, Matt, you've got your own, so I'll pass you over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Matt. I suppose I just wanted to, let me just share my screen. Just as we will be delivering the assessment, I think it might be worth just kind of giving you a bit of a whistle stop on how that might look. So I'm presuming you can see my screen because I've already done this today, but as Matt rightly alluded to, there is a funded assessment available. It's called an OLA in Amazon terms, but in layman's terms, it's a migration assessment. I try to steer away from OLA because it's just a confusing term. But yeah, it's fully funded by AWS, and Bytes have delivered more of these assessments than any partner in the whole of EMEA. It's our bread and butter. We have one customer on the call who's already underway with one of these assessments, and they want to determine how much their infrastructure might cost in VMC, how much it would be if it was AWS native, more likely what a blended migration might look like. So, you know, a bit of VMC here, a bit of AWS native. And as you may have seen in the questions, that person has asked if we can obviously attain VCDR POC or VCDR data so that we can prove like the cost of that service, which absolutely we can. So just to give you a kind of a 1 or 2 slides of what it might look like, this is what it might look like for you guys. We're going to assess your estate. We're going to look at what the breakdown of Windows and SQL and Linux and unknown, a breakdown of the volumes versus and the capacity versus occupancy, and the data transfer outbound and inbound. But more importantly for this purpose, it has application dependency mapping built in. So why it's so important for us to run this assessment is so that we can see how your infrastructure works and how it interacts with each other. So if we are implementing a DR solution like VCDR, it allows us to build that in a place where it's very quick and easy for you guys to replicate and be, you know, back into production in case of any form of disaster recovery, which, as we now know, is not necessarily a tornado sweeping through Norwich. It could quite easily be someone turning off the lights or crashing into the generator, which once happened at Bytes and took down our on-premise data center. That genuinely happened about 5 to 10 years ago. So yeah, you get a breakdown of this. And then this slide, I think, is a really nice way of helping people understand that a migration to the cloud, specifically AWS, isn't necessarily one path. There's lots of different paths, and they've color coded it to make it nice and simple. But you can see there, that big green line is that lift up, you know, move it in, relocate it via VMC. So you're still interacting in exactly the same way as you normally would, but you're being hosted in Amazon. So that's the VMC route. Rehosting is that lift and shift with modernize, replatforming, replace, and refactoring. So for the purpose of today, I won't go into too much detail because we want to you've joined this call today to talk about VCDR. But I think it's really important to note that, you know, we can not only give you that VCDR data, but with the fully funded POC, but we can also provide some data around what it might cost in VMC, what it might cost in native, and start building out that picture. Even if it's not on the cards for another 2 or 3 years, it's sometimes a really good stop play to just kind of review where you're at the moment. And then next steps and rough timelines. After this webinar, you may be phone called by myself or one of the team. If you're on that call said, yeah, we'd love to have a fully funded OLA assessment. I should replace that with cloud migration assessment. That would be about a week for us to make get the right admin, get the right data from yourselves, and make the application to Amazon. So after a couple of weeks, we would get you access to the tool of choice. And then we run that. Once the agents are deployed, it runs for 2 weeks, and then we will be able to present the results within 1 week. At that point, you know, Matt and I would be working together to start putting your POC together to ensure that you're ready, and we can put that together so you can try the VCDR service completely free of charge with the data that we've pulled from the assessment. So that is it. We've hit pretty much 30 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
So hopefully that allows people to have a few minutes to ask any questions. Equally, feel free to put them in the chat, and then if not, obviously, I'd just like to thank you for all of your time, and we really look forward to potentially working with you over the next few weeks and months. Yeah, I'll come off now to see if anyone wants to come off mute and be brave enough to ask a question to either Matt or myself or Mike.
Yeah, actually, someone's just asked that question about the assessment, and I can. So the assessment is using optimised. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. and the service, we could provide effectively provide the sizing, so enables us to understand the size of your CPU memory and compute, or CPU memory and storage, and then all the licensing associated with it. So yeah, it will do all of the above for you, and then we can either have a conversation about VCDR or a conversation about that wider, longer term.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Phil. I think we're already doing an assessment with you guys, so I'm probably the customer you were talking about. But I would definitely want to add VCDR into the mix because, as said already by people here, there's no one path. And I suspect, well, I know my senior management want a smorgasbord of things to pick from, with some recommendations. So I think from what I've seen today, which is very high level, it's probably something we should consider. It's effectively, as I understand it, fail into the cloud, in a fairly, I say fairly lightweight, as lightweight as you could probably make it in a sane way. So. Yeah, definitely.
Rather than say lightweight, say simple.
Yeah, it's not really lightweight, is it? It's simple as
there's some intelligent parts in the background, but that's the user interfaces are all very simple.
I'll ensure, Phil, that is brought in to the assessment and ensure that the guys capture that. And congratulations on the little one.
Oh, thank you. I've got a question. What was the sort of recovery times you were looking at?
So recovery time, RPO is 30 minutes, but then obviously, and what happens is we take we effectively bundle in snapshots into that 30-minute period. I think over a period of time that will be, 12 months ago it was 4 hours. It's now 30 minutes. I can see that reducing.
Yeah, I support a number of services that are near zero RPO and RTO, so I'd obviously have to do something different for those. But there may be services where half an hour is acceptable. I guess that's. But that's for me to push back to the business and say, well, if you want to use these things, you've got to not insist that everything works instantaneously, and you might be able to save some money that way. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a fortune.
There's a blend of options here. We're talking specifically about VCDR today, but VMware does have a portfolio of disaster recovery services. So we have Site Recovery Manager and indeed Stretch Cluster. So you can pick your DR requirement associated. And if you did have the pilot light running, the 2-node pilot light, you could effectively run SRM on some of those really high priority applications. And
it maybe be structured then differently and actually put some of that service into the cloud and then scale up. I don't know. We'll see what the assessment comes out with. Thank you for the time.
That's okay. Thank you for your questions.
Perfect. Anyone else, guys? You never know how long to leave it in silence.
Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Thanks, Greg. All right, well, we'll let you get some time back, guys, and we really appreciate your time today. All of the data and the recording will be sent across to everyone on this call. If you have seen a survey pop up, please do. It should take about 10 to 20 seconds to complete that, and it will really help us with our follow-up to ensure that we're giving you a call and speaking about the right things. But yeah, we'll be more than happy to talk about this in a lot more detail, both Matt, myself, and Mike. And we all thank you for your time, and we'd love to wish you a great day ahead. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Bye all.
Cheers all. Bye.
Not sure if Gary's at his desk.
Potentially not.
No problem. All right, well, we'll take this offline, guys. But no, thanks everyone as always.
Thank you.
And have a great day, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you guys.